Hey, this is Pamela Riemenschneider. I'm the retail editor for Blue Book Services, and this is the Produce Reporter Week in Review. Greg, we have a lot of data again this week, but everything about consumer spending right now is such a moving target, and it is a fast moving target. We have a lot of different analysis coming through, and two huge reports dropped in the last couple of days. One of them is the monthly sales analysis using IRI data. That's written by Anna Marie for the International Fresh Produce Association. It's got analysis by Joe Watson from IFPA and Jonna Parker from IRI. I love this report. We started doing it at the very beginning of the pandemic, and I think it really rounds out a lot of what we're looking for in what's going on with sales. And sales is the one thing that I wanted to pull out of this, because I pulled a line and it says sales specials, while popular, are only gearing up and are still far below pre-pandemic levels. And consumers are starting to notice that they're just not seeing the sales that they thought anymore, in food at least, because if you're listening to the big retail quarterly reports, a lot of them are trying to clearance out stuff before we get to the holidays because nobody wants to buy tiki torches at Christmas time.
Of course. Yeah, we have Halloween coming up, so that's going to be big for the broad retailers. Yeah, I think we don't want to talk every week about the I word, but consumers in survey after survey say they're struggling, and there was even a bit at the bottom of Anne Marie's story talking about such a high percentage of people who are struggling and even having trouble finding food. That's really shocking because we know food prices are up, but traditionally we see people trade down and buy the same amount of, or just do their best to trade down and keep the food coming into their households. But this is saying 43% are having trouble or having difficulty affording groceries. It is definitely higher. I'm really surprised people aren't cutting out other things like we talked about at the beginning of the summer. One of the things people were doing in order to not buy less food was trading out of visiting restaurants or entertainment or some of those other things. So I'm a little bit surprised that we're not seeing those dips in those other areas. The restaurants, it seems like, are actually doing reasonably well. I mean, there are more visits to restaurants right now.
Well, and all the people crowding airplanes and crashing airports certainly don't seem to be having trouble affording groceries. Or are they splurging now on travel, thinking that I got the money now, I might not have it later, so here's my last hurrah. That is consumer behavior that I'm sure a lot of people are wondering about. But the sales thing really kind of stuck with me when we think about a lot of the quarterly report action that we've got, a lot of the retail news that we've had in the last week. Walmart just had its earnings report, and they're talking about middle to upper income, middle class people are trading down to Walmart, buying more groceries at Walmart to save money. And then we've got Dollar General saying, hey, we're accelerating our produce program, and we expect to have produce in 3,000 stores by the end of the year. And I could remember when I first started picking this out, saying, hey, Dollar General's putting produce in its stores. And I asked everyone I knew in the industry if they could find a Dollar General that had produce in it, and send me a picture, because there's 16, 17,000, is there 18,000 now, Dollar General stores, and it was a needle in a haystack. And now we're talking about 3,000 stores. That's significant coverage of their network, and it's 3,000 of 10,000 stores they hope to add fresh produce. So all of these options for lower cost groceries. And I feel like if a traditional retailer is still putting the brakes on promoting food, people are looking for coupons, people are looking for sales, people are looking to save money. And if you're holding the line on pricing on some of this stuff, people are going to just trade out and go somewhere else.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big messages is when you see some of these lower cost providers making upticks, there are losers in this market. And I can think from my personal experience and people I know in my situation, we are going to Walmarts and Aldi's more, and we're going to Hy-Vees and Price Choppers and some of the local independents less because milk costs half as much at the other place. And in produce, I mean, you can the sales are at those places.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I went to Aldi for the first time in probably a couple of months for me because it's not close to where I live. I have to be over there by it in order to save money by going there. And some of the prices are really compelling there. Of course, I've got one of the lower cost major store brands in my neighborhood. I have HEB, and HEB beats most places on price, even Walmart head to head. So I'm very fortunate that I live in Texas where food generally costs a little bit less than elsewhere in the country. But I mean, I've gotten around this summer and I'm shocked at some of the prices that people are paying. So, I'm insulated a little bit from it. So I have to keep that in mind when I'm talking about pricing. But really, consumers are hurting. Consumers are looking for pricing and consumers are demanding it. And if you don't have it, they're going somewhere else.
Absolutely. And
okay.
We had an FMI report. We didn't run the report. You had to order the report, but it dug really into the fresh category.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you found some interesting things in that.
Yeah. It's an inaugural report for FMI, so they don't have any comparisons or analysis that way. But it's called the State of Fresh Foods. And one of the things that I pulled out of here just by getting the report as a member of the media is space allocation in store. And this is retailers, they surveyed what are they planning on doing in their stores and how are they allocating square footage. And 82% of those that they surveyed are adding more space to fresh prepared and grab and go foods. 0% were decreasing that space. And the next line item on that chart, and I'll grab this chart out of here and show everyone, 48% are increasing space for fresh produce, and only 1% they surveyed are decreasing space for fresh produce. And of those 48% that are adding more space to fresh produce, 62% of them said it's to add more space for organics. So there's some good stuff in this report. If you can get a hold of it from the Food Marketing Institute or what are they called? Food Industry Association. I can't remember what they call themselves now. FMI. We just call them FMI. But some good stuff.
FMI, the Food Industry Association. FMI does not stand for anything. The acronym.
It's an acronym that doesn't have an M. But to see that retailers are adding more space to fresh, prepared, and grab and go goes along with another news release we got this week from Meijer. With some of those heat and eat meal kits that they're adding. I've seen a lot of traction in meal kits. Blue Apron sent us a news release this week about its 10th anniversary. Still hanging in there after 10 years. I should order them because I haven't ordered them since the very beginning.
Yeah, but then you'd have to prepare it and assemble it. Whereas if they have the grab and goes, they're competing with the food service. Sometimes I even see food service brands in grocery stores get grab and go. I get a lot of my Kansas City barbecue at grocery stores. Instead of going to the restaurant, I get it cold and then eat it on my terms. It's the same stuff and it's great.
Yeah, it's the same stuff without the lines because Kansas City barbecue often is associated with lines. And as someone who lives in Austin, I'm used to standing in line for things because people, it seems like the millennial mindset, especially amongst the software bro sector of the economy, totally okay with standing in lines for things. And I am not going to stand in line for an hour for barbecue. It's just not going to happen.
I'm not standing in lines for anything.
All right. Speaking of, let's be cognizant of everyone's time, including our own, and cut it off here. That's it for the Produce Reporter Week in Review. If you are not getting the Produce Reporter newsletter, you need to go to producebluebooks.com and sign up.
Chewy, you almost made it. Who's bothering you?